Well, let's continue the conversation because joining us now is Professor Dirk Kotze. He is with the University of South Africa, and alongside him is Asanda Ngoasheng, a political analyst. Let me start with you, Ms. Ngoasheng, and ask the question. We have all watched this build-up to this day in Mpumalanga, the ANC leadership fanning out the length and breadth of Mpumalanga. In your mind, what should South Africans be fixated on as the ANC celebrates 112 years of existence, but also importantly, marking 30 years of democracy in South Africa?
Well, I think, it's very important in these kinds of occasions to kind of take a look back and say, what has this political party achieved and where have they failed? And I think, very few people will argue with you in South Africa when you say that, at least for the very first 15 years of South Africa, the ANC seemed to be the best placed political party to take us into a post-democratic, post-apartheid South Africa. The poverty indicators, the economic indicators, and various other matrices and measures that are used to look at whether a country is performing badly or doing well seems to indicate that we were well on our way to developing and becoming an amazing country. And I think we achieved many things with ANC leadership, especially in those first 15 years. However, things started to then, fall apart, as Ngugi wa Thiong'o warned us, when we started to have a lot of internal conflict within the ANC. We started to have division in the ANC, which was most demonstrated by the war between Thabo Mbeki and Jacob Zuma, which had a lot of impact in terms of the political party then not being very clear on what its values were, on what its vision was, and what it really stood for. And this was the beginning of the setting of the Malays. And so many people will tell you that, Jacob Zuma did not start corruption in the ANC. It was there before him. But what he did, however, is that he, together with the ANC, as Fikile Mbalula has told us, went on a path of destroying the very institutions that were put in place to ensure that should corruption rear its head, as it does in every country in the world, that there would be measures in place to stop the rot. Except when you destroy the scorpions, when you destroy all Chapter 9 institutions, when you, excavate every single penny out of every single state enterprise, then you begin to have a country that is running out of money. You begin to have a country where all the economic indicators are pointing downwards, and you begin to have a depressed nation. And that is the state that we have been as a country for sort of like the past, I would say, about 15 years. Precisely because of the very same Jacob Zuma that is now telling the very same people that he can deliver something new and he can deliver something different to the ANC, despite having been the president of the ANC for a good 10 plus years and the deputy president for another 5 years before that, and of course the premier of the KZN some 5 years before that. And so I think what it should be, I suppose, foremost in people's minds is the ANC the best political party to lead us, not for the past 30 years, but is it the best political party to take us into the 30 plus years? Does it have the vision? Does it understand South African issues? And has it shown itself to be capable of leadership? And my response would be no, because we have high unemployment. We have corruption that has now become endemic, both in the state and in the ANC. Yeah. The very fabric of the organization has become tainted by this. And, it's ironic that the ANC presidents from Thabo Mbeki all the way from Owa Tambo all the way to Thabo Mbeki warned the ANC and said the biggest threat to the ANC is not external, it is internal, and it is the division. And we've seen that. We've seen the mushrooming of COPE, we've seen the mushrooming of EFF, and now we're seeing the mushrooming of MK. as splinter groups, as splinter organizations away from the ANC, and we're likely to see the ANC disintegrate into these many, tiny shards and pieces until there's nothing left, essentially.
Professor Kotze, let's bring you into the conversation. I want to sum up what Ms. Ngoasheng has said in a form of a question, because what she is suggesting to us is a question that we should be asking, and that is whether the ANC is a party of the future, or is the ANC in 2024, after 30 years of being in power, will this be the year that the ANC is taken out of power?
Yes, I think that's the big issue about the election specifically, and that is that it might become this watershed event that you are now suggesting. What we've seen is a gradual decline of the ANC, especially since 2016 with the local government election, when they lost significant metros like Johannesburg and Tshwane and Nelson Mandela Bay. And in the meantime, they've also lost support in 2019 at the national and provincial level, and again in 2021 at the local government election. So there is not as if this is the moment for the ANC to be decided whether it is still the same party as that of, let's say, 2004 or 2009 even, where it was very close to 70%. So the gradual decline is evident for everyone. The question is whether that can be turned around, because they are at this point now where they are so close to losing their majority that is the only option to rescue themselves, is to turn the trend around. And I'm not sure whether we can say or see already that the ANC is presenting to the public a new vision, a new agenda, a new policy approach, and also that they are appealing to the youth, because I think this is one of the key issues in the coming election, is the apathy of the youth. They simply don't participate in elections. The first party who will be able to mobilize the youth will be the party with the new growth potential. But at this stage, we don't see it, not even in the case of the EFF, that they have the capacity really, or the appeal, in order to galvanize this new enthusiasm that is necessary amongst the youth. And I think that is the key for us in terms of what we are going to see for the next, let's say, 10 years. The alternative, and it seems like this is the direction we are moving in, is that of a real multi-party system, where we had, for the first now 30 years, a dominant party system with the ANC. But with these coalitions that are emerging, it's becoming, power is more shared now, more distributed, and at the same time it becomes, some parties, like in the ANC especially, becomes more fragmented in the process. So the danger for the ANC is once they are becoming an opposition party, and they are not prepared for the role of opposition party at all. We've seen it especially the role in the Western Cape, where they have to play the role of opposition party, where they are still in decline in terms of support. So if it moves over to the national level or the provincial levels in, let's say, Gauteng or KwaZulu-Natal, then it spells a real or poses a real danger for the ANC for its future.
Yeah. Ms. Ngoasheng, let's come back to you. My sense is that in this year of election, 2024, governance issues are going to come into sharp focus, particularly as it relates to the ANC's governance record. But what for you are going to be the key election issues, not just for the ANC, but other parties? Because Professor Kotze raises a very good point, and that is a party of the future is the one that is going to either galvanize the youth, because that then determines the trajectory of the political future of this country.
Well, I think, the biggest issue in South Africa is, and will always be until it's solved, youth unemployment. Because if you don't have an employed youth, then it means that you don't have a good retirement system in place, because there's nobody who's contributed to that retirement system. Secondly, if young people are not employed, it means that you don't have a tax base of the future, and that has implications for the current as well as for the current as well as for the future. And so the biggest issue is youth unemployment, because also studies show that in countries where young people are employed, young people are, I suppose, occupied in activities that are positive and in activities that give them meaning, that give them, some kind of income, then social cohesion is something that is good. And also crime is also something that is low. And so South Africa suffers from a situation where we have one big problem, which then kind of becomes which then results in symptoms that, cloud everything else. And so once you have youth unemployment, you will always have high crime, because if people are not employed, then they become easy targets for gangs, they become easy targets for organized crime, and they become easy targets for anyone really that has nefarious ideas. And so youth unemployment is the biggest one, and I agree with the professor that, whoever can get young people of South Africa to not be apathetic anymore and to get up and vote is really going to change the future of this country and is going to shift the politics of this country. And of course, the electricity issue is another one, and the provision of water is also another one, because without electricity, it becomes very difficult for business to be able to deliver what it needs to. It also becomes very difficult for small enterprises in particular, because suddenly you've got this high cost of just making sure that there's energy, which wasn't there before when we didn't have this level of load shedding. And then you also have the issue of water. I mean, water is life. Without water, we will not survive. And so when a government is unable to provide a consistent supply of water, it means that you're increasing health issues and you're increasing you're decreasing, I suppose, people's mortality, particularly when it comes to children, because children suffer from a lot of diseases that are either waterborne, because people are using water from rivers and streams which are not clean themselves, and so on and so forth. And so it's the problem is that, you have these issues that on their own seem to be kind of technical, but when you look at the socio-economic implications, then they become, a big keg that is just waiting to blow up in all of our faces. And you'll see that, the issue of unemployment, of energy, of crime, and of course the issue of logistics with our dying rail system, and of course our roads, which are not at their best because there's too many trucks that are too heavy on them. These are also the issues that business have identified, and business is now working with government and have committed themselves to work with whoever is in government, whether it's ANC or not, to solve these issues, because if those issues are not solved, there is no business to be had, and South Africa will not be able to grow, both in terms of the economy, but also just in terms of the human, development that is required.
Professor Kotze, can I ask you to be brief in the question I'm going to ask you next, because I'm completely out of time. We can't ignore what the ANC government is doing internationally, and that is to put itself on a good stead on the question of human rights. But is that likely to work positively for it domestically, or is that going to work in the negative?
I think the issue about this current court case at the ICJ is more of an international nature. It has more of an impact on the international community, the international opinion about South Africa. Domestically, for now, yes, it is an issue, but I don't think it will be sustainable as an issue into the election. These matters that my colleague now referred to, I think, receives much more attention. There's much more stronger emotions about them as an electoral matter than international matters in general. Over time, during the past 30 years, international matters simply haven't played any prominent role in elections. And it's not unique to South Africa. In most countries, it's actually like that.